Hello, this is Diane Dressback, and I have Melissa Farley with me today, and we are interviewing Maria Montgomery. Maria has written a chapter in the compilation book that we've been putting together from us for you, Inspiring Stories of Healing, Growth, and Transformation. And I've met Maria many, many years ago. She obviously is not a beautiful painting, but she writes under a pseudonym. So she is blessing us with this beautiful painting to look at while she talks today. So Maria, why don't you just give us a brief introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm Maria Montgomery when I write as a pseudonym. And that is a pseudonym because I lived in many different countries and I worked for the government there. And every country has a sense of pride, and every country has a sense of protecting themselves. And therefore, to protect the people I know from anything that they could ever use against them because they know me, I've chosen a pseudonym. I have retired. I'm not very old, but I have retired and am enjoying retired life in the United States.
That's awesome. Maria, my husband is a journalist, and he's fascinated with stories about government workers and spies and lots of different things. And he would have, I think, a billion questions for you. But I will move away from that.
But I was not a spy.
Okay. That was like the first place I was like, ooh, I wonder.
Not intentionally.
Okay. The intrigue. So we're trying not to give too much away about each of the author's chapters, because obviously we want people to read the book, but could you share just a little bit about what you chose to write about for Diane's compilation?
I had several ideas at first, but then Diane was fascinated. We connected when we first met years ago on the fact that she had lived overseas, and then I lived most of my career overseas. And because of that, she wanted me to center on life as a foreigner overseas. And so that sort of stuck in my head as I ruminated over this. And I thought, yes, it is glossy, but not in reality in the sense of long-term living overseas. It really has a grind to it sometimes. And so I just wanted to focus on the feeling of being a foreigner, the feeling of being a stranger, and gave some anecdotes about that.
I'm curious. I feel that, and maybe I'm just making assumptions, but I think it takes great courage to live overseas and in a foreign environment. And I feel like probably a lot of people would say to you, like, oh, you're so brave, or kind of put these titles on you for being able to live like that for a prolonged period of time. Is that something you get a lot? Are people really fascinated by just your ability to even adapt and do something like that?
They assume I have a sense of adventure. They assume that I am bold. They assume that I am brave, or sort of a hippie flying through the world because they can't settle somewhere. So those are some of the assumptions I get. But in reality, I'm an introvert. You have to have a sense of calling, or a sense of direction, or a sense of mission that will keep you in a place when you just really get frustrated. Because
That's
any day I could turn around and come home and live comfortably. But yet at the same time, you have to weigh out the mission. And that's true for any job that you have. So the goals that I had, the mission that I wanted to accomplish, the sense of direction that I felt was what pulled me through.
Interesting. Okay.
What was it, Maria, that intrigued you to go? Because I know you taught while you were abroad. So what pulled you? I mean, did you think about traveling as a child, or what kind of drew you to that type of work?
Perhaps, because actually when I was a child, my brother he was several years older than I, he loved Greek mythology. So in grade school, when we had to draw trees or something, I was trying to draw Zeus or Atlas or something like that. So perhaps that was something that was there. Also, my father used to take us on vacation. He had a month's vacation, and we got in the car. He says, "Which direction do you want to go?" And off we went. And so we drove as far as we can drive as far until he knew, says, "Well, we have to turn back tomorrow because we have to get home in a certain time." So that sense of what is out there, what is visibly there that's different. So with family members moving all over the States, there was no choice. I had to live overseas. I just had to go. No. So yes, also in my high school years, there was a group of girls who were going overseas, and I was not able to go. And that disappointed me. They were going to Europe. And so a couple years later, I just moved to Europe. I thought, ha, you've spent 2 weeks.
I feel like I can relate to that. I also had a group of girlfriends that went to Europe when they were 15, and it was part of a class we were taking, and I wasn't able to go, and it was like heartbreaking to me. So I relate to you on that. So I'm going to ask you probably a question you get asked a lot, but as a fellow appreciator of traveling, I just think it's a remarkable experience for enriching your life. I like to travel slowly is what I say, where I go to a place and I stay there for, a prolonged period of time so I can kind of get absorbed into the culture a little bit. And it really does open up your horizons and your understanding of how other people think and operate and live and function. And that's so great. So if somebody could only travel to one place, in their life, where would you suggest that be, and why? Why was that such a valuable place for you to experience?
I've been nodding my head while you were talking. Let me see. I don't know if you saw that flower bob or not. Turkey is a fascinating country. I'm a Christian in my belief system, and to see where the different disciples walked, where the first 7 churches were established, where Christians were first called Christians, where Noah's Ark landed, all that where the Hittites, there actually are Hittites, the Hittite region and everything else is found there. The Assyrians, they have a big, so all the variety of cultures from ancient of times are found in a variety of places in Turkey. So I would probably go to visit the 7 churches. One, it's tourist friendly. Mm-hmm. There are people who speak English around there. You can go from site to site, wonderful food right on the coast, wonderful beach life, sailing life. So I would suggest that as one place to go.
I love that. Okay. I'm adding that to my list for sure. So, I realize now that the pandemic has prevented quite a bit of travel for quite a few people. So I'm curious what advice you might have for people that are feeling stuck, or maybe feeling that they have been robbed of sort of being able to get out in the world. How are you sort of, and this is maybe a parallel question because you are retired now, and so maybe you're not traveling quite as much. So how do you kind of fill that sense of wanderlust when you get it?
Part of it is reading. I enjoy picking up the stray, non-known author, and since I am retired, it's not a requirement for me to read a book. So I just go to the library, go to a section, pick up 10 books that I never heard of before, and start flipping through them. And if I don't learn something, if it's not from a different cultural aspect that I'm accustomed to, if it's not intriguing in that way, then I put it down, pick up the next book. I don't have to read it. It's not mandatory. So that's one thing. And found some fascinating stories of people's life in the Samoas, or people's life in India or China, or that I would never even be interested in personally. It just happened as I read it to think, wow, that's interesting. The other is to just, I get on internet services and just sort of Google, show me interesting videos of other countries, and all sorts of different opportunities pop up. And then I click on one and do a 20-minute, 30-minute, 10-minute, whatever video of some place in the world.
Those are great tips. Yeah. And it's interesting, kind of that spirit of exploration, because I joined a book club recently because I looked at their past choices, and they were all books that I never would have picked for myself. And I thought, that's a really fascinating way to kind of get out of my comfort zone and learn some new things by joining a book club that wouldn't pick, my own preferences. So I think that's a really cool thing that you brought up about reading. I want to talk to you about, what do the next 5 years for you look like? And being a retired person, I think a lot of people have assumptions that, you're retired and you just sit around and, in leisure all day. Right. So, but we've actually talked to another author that has a very robust kind of life in her retirement and her sort of second transition from what she used to do. And so I'm curious, what does life look like for you now and 5 years from now?
I used to be a person who wrote down 5-year goals, 4-year goals, 3-year goals, 6-month goals, weekly goals. Now I do not. What does it look like for me? What I'm doing now is basically, and I hope to continue doing that, is embrace the life in this place that I am in as deeply as I can, assisting people, helping people, exploring the area around me, and listening to stories. That is always fascinating. I still do help people overseas with their English and some of their needs. I don't know. I think it's so full now that I really don't want to set goals. That I'm being surprised enough. I'm not bored. I don't have a financial goal. I don't have a business goal that I need to incorporate. So I'm going to coast.
I appreciate that so much. I feel like I aspire to be you when I grow up from that statement. I'm going to ask you my stumper question. I think even Diane was a little nervous to have me include this. We asked this of all of our authors, and that is, I really like to learn from people's experiences with perceived failure. I think that valuable things come out of when we fail. And so I love to ask you to share an experience where you feel like you might have failed, but also learned something really, really important from that, and helped you make decisions better in the future.
A scenario happened where there were two groups of believers in one of the major cities of Christian believers, and they, like the whole, we're talking about 7 people, 10 people, not many. But they decided, since you have a large apartment, why don't you host a Christmas party for these 2 groups? However, you cannot come because of, you don't know these people, et cetera, et cetera. So I agreed, thinking, why not? What's the big deal? So I cleaned the house good, set up, cooked for days, set it all up, everything else, and left. As a result of that party, someone inside it was an informer or something, and they connected people from one side of the city with the other side of the city. And as a result of that, this one of the people was beat terribly, was imprisoned, his head swole from his beatings, probably very large. I cannot, I would say 2 or 3 times, but I'm sure that's an exaggeration. It would not be possible, but he was very, very large. I lost my job. I was asked to leave the city, asked to leave the country.
Wow.
All for a sense of selfishness on the part of, this is my culture. Wouldn't it be fun to have a Christmas party?
Right.
As foreigners, especially as Americans, we have the privilege of just being escorted out of the country. As a native of those countries, whichever country I was living in, they did not have that luxury. my small actions that are, with good intents affect people.
Mm,
And so my biggest failure was not taking into consideration how it would be received or how it would be interpreted by outside officials, and what the consequences would be. So, what did I learn from that? To be more cautious. That even doing this, my mystery and having to act in a mysterious fashion, even though I'm a very open person, if it does something to protect someone else, then it's worth it in the long run.
mm, mhm. Yeah, that was extremely powerful, and even what you said earlier about how just your small actions that you take, how they affect other people. That's something that I don't think a lot of others give consideration to, even on a day-to-day basis. So that was really, really remarkable. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
So I have a question, Maria. While you were writing the chapter for the compilation book, what was one thing that you learned about yourself in writing that chapter? Was there anything that kind of came to the surface as you
That
were?
I learned about myself while writing was
Yes.
that, hmm, I was amazed at, because you don't think of these things, you don't relive all these different scenarios, and there's a lot I deleted to get the 2,000 word mark. But you
Yeah.
don't, you don't, you don't think of all of these things that transpired, but different people came up. Again, I was amazed at what opportunities I've had, because I had to select one of the different countries I had lived in, and chose to stick with the stories of one country. I was amazed at the protection that I've had experienced over all these years. It was humbling. What did I learn about myself? That I make mistakes when I type. that that what you're trying to communicate often it comes out faster than what you're thinking, and so someone does always need to edit. Someone always needs to come back and look at your writing and your thoughts and say, didn't you mean this instead? So those things are always a part of our life.
I have one more question, and that is this painting that is up in lieu of your beautiful face. What is the painting? I mean, it's really, really pretty. Did you do that
Did you
or
paint?
somebody?
Yeah.
I am a friend of of the painter, and it's one that was gifted to me. And I have it in my bedroom, and the light, when it shines on it, makes these vivid white swirls underneath, and you can barely see the flowers. With the picture straight on, you see the flowers, but you see all the swirls underneath, the light swirls on the bottom and the dark swirls on top. It just reminded me of the fact that the flowers are there, but it's very evident in the pictures. But in the real life, they're more subtle. And as a foreigner, you are there. It's obvious you are there, but there's so much light and darkness going on. There's so many swirls and shadows of things happening around you, that I chose that to depict this story, and chose that to depict myself, because even though you are part of the culture and you acclimate to the culture and you try to conform to it in every way, you're still sort of part of the shadows. You're still wondering, did I do it right? What am I supposed to do in this situation? Did I express myself correctly? Especially in a different language. And so life is there, but sometimes you're just an observer. Sometimes you are on the sidelines. Sometimes the beauty of the flower is not seen, which is, myself, because of all the other swirls and shadows and other activities that are going on.
What an eloquent way of explaining that and tying everything in. That was beautiful.
That was really incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maria, for talking with Melissa and I today. We really appreciate it. And I'm really looking forward to sharing your chapter with everybody when the book finally comes out. So I thank you for being here today.
It was definitely my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for watching the interview today. And you can share as much as you would like. If you would like more information about the From Us For You Inspiring Stories of Healing, Growth, and Transformation, you can go to FromUsForYou.com and get more details there. So thank you for joining us today. And I hope you make it a very hopeful day. Thank you.